After 7 years, Daredevil returned to the small screen with Daredevil Born Again. Season 1 has come to a close, so it's time to stop and rank all 5 seasons of Daredevil from the worst to the best. Hi, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies and TV way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comments section. Let me know what's your ranking of all 5 seasons of Daredevil. I am including the Defenders in here since he is basically the star of that show, so it functions as a season of Daredevil in a lot of ways. And if you're watching the original one of Daredevil and you skip the Defenders, Season 3 doesn't make any sense, so that's why it's included in here. And let's get started. In last, the Defenders. Now, I'm not a Defenders hater, but for that matter, I'm not really a Defenders defender either. I think it's a show that most people watched it and were really disappointed that it didn't live up to the potential. And you just remember that bad taste of disappointment that it left you with, and you forget the positive things about the show. I think the big, gigantic problem here is that to do their big Avengers-sized team-up, they pulled from kind of all of the worst, where it's a follow-up to what is widely regarded the weakest plot line in the main run of Daredevil, the stuff about the hand. It's a follow-up to what is widely regarded the worst show that they did, Iron Fist, and the showrunner is Scott Buck, who is infamously a bad showrunner. He did some legendary television work 20 years ago, where he was one of the main writers on some fantastic seasons of television, in particular on Dexter. And then he got promoted to showrunner. In pretty much every season that he was the showrunner on, or season he was the showrunner of, is bad. Everything good about this season is like, it's really fun to see a team up. As soon as you take all these different characters and put them in a room together and see how they interact, see them fight with each other, that's fun. There's a charm to that. It actually does a pretty good job of even incorporating the side characters from all of these different shows and having a reason why each of these different characters and their side characters on the quest that they were on their series would end up together in this adventure. The main story is just not very interesting, and it all feels very claustrophobic. When you're doing a big team up with 4 different heroes coming together to battle the hand to save New York City, all of that sounds epic and big and exciting. And such a huge percentage of this show is people stuck in a single room for a full episode. Like, our characters finally meet up, and we have our first big fight with them, maybe the most iconic of the fights with all the characters together, and it's in a little hallway. And then the next episode is them in a diner talking. And then there's one where they're largely in an interrogation room. And our big finale is them on this one set battling the hand. And it just has this small feel to it. That's what happens when you're on a tight budget. So it never feels as epic or exciting as it should. You never feel like the city's actually in danger. You never feel the scope, the size of all of it. Everything feels small. And that just steals all the excitement of the whole thing. And then just from there, the hand was always never very interesting in the Marvel Netflix universe. They take like this big gigantic thing that should be the thrilling, mysterious criminal organization, and somehow it just always fell flat. Well, we'll talk about that when we get to Daredevil Season 2 more, but it just never was all that interesting. And they bring in Sigourney Weaver, maybe my favorite actress of all time. Ripley is the villain in this TV show that appears to have a very limited budget for the scope and size of the story they're trying to tell. And they make her so boring, and they do absolutely nothing with her, and they remove her before we're even to the finale, and you're like, why was Sigourney Weaver in this? Why did you waste your budget on getting Sigourney Weaver just to do that? So just this, it's the show that like there's a bunch, rewatching, I was like, oh, this is actually kind of cool. Actually, I forgot that this was neat to see, and I like these elements, but the overall feeling of the season as a whole is just total disappointment because they brought in their weakest showrunner, and they did it on a tight budget, and they used their worst plot line that they never figured out how to properly tell, the story of the hand. Coming in at number 4, Daredevil Born Again. And this is a season that I think was just constantly shackled to disastrous initial decisions, where the initial creative team that they brought in weren't very good writers. I'm not familiar really with their other work, but it's not stuff that anyone has praised to me. So they brought in people that I don't think were ever the right people to tackle this show. We're never a high enough caliber, prestige enough, or anything good enough to be given Daredevil. And then they went, we want to do our own thing. We're gonna fan cast Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio, but do a totally different show. It's not really a continuation, it's our own thing. And that decision was just sabotaged the potential for how good this thing ever could have been, because nobody wants them in a new show. We want them in continuing the old show. And with that terrible decision, they just tried to make it different in all the wrong ways. So we remove all of our supporting cast. And the supporting cast is pivotal to the original run of episodes. And we move it out of Hell's Kitchen and everything's glossy and cleaner. And that whole middle run of these episodes just gets kind of lost. Like the White Tiger stuff was kind of cool, and then they end it. And maybe Muse could have been cool, but like that felt underdeveloped. And so they brought a new creative team to try and make it better. And when the episodes and work from the new creative team, are much better. They have more tension. They feel the connections. They bring the supporting cast back in some degrees. But I think that just they were working from a really bad hand. So, like, it's great to be back in this world. I've waited 7 years for it. And in the good and the great parts of it, it recaptured some of the magic. It was, like, cool to see Matt and Wilson, a little bit of Karen, a little bit of Frank. It's great. Some of the dialogue in episodes 1, 8, and 9, and sprinkled in other places in the middle, captured the magic of the original run. But this show has multiple gigantic holes in the middle of it, the shape of the supporting cast of the original run. Of course, Karen and Foggy. Of course. They're just so pivotal to Matt. Like, just finished rewatching season 3 last night. There's a whole episode dedicated just following Karen in her past life, and it's interesting because she's interesting. But everyone else is interesting on that show, too. The night nurse, Mahoney. There's all of these little... The priest, Matt's mother. Just everywhere you go, there's an interesting side character. Ben Urich. All of these side characters in all of the seasons are great characters that you like to spend time with and hear dialogue between the characters. And they removed all of them and replaced them with very boring side characters. The supporting cast were really just the filler cast. And so immediately, all of the little moments in between are usually not very good. Because there's only a handful of times that Matt and Wilson interact. Just a disastrous decision that held the entire thing back. In a very frustrating way. It started and ended with a lot of promise. And that's the new creative team. So I'm very hopeful for next season. Like, it ended with the next to last episode, there's built all the tension. It was like, okay, here we go. And then it had the explosive finale. It was like, all right, here we go. Maybe next season will be better. Maybe next season will capture it. But this season felt so much like almost something I wanted, but built on such a faulty foundation of disastrous decisions that sabotaged it, that they totally misread the fans. Like, I guess the fans just want to see Charlie. No! We loved the show! In third, Daredevil Season 1. I'm sure this is a bit of a controversial placement for a number of you, but also to be perfectly clear, huge gap between Born Again and the third spot on this one. As for the original season of Daredevil itself, just a fantastic introduction to that world that found the right vibe, the right direction. Like, what is it like? It's a superhero action story, but it's also existential noir. It's this guy that is just torn with his burden on his shoulders of what he needs to do and what the toll that it takes on him. and just right out of the gate, just like established itself as different in how dark it was, how serious it took the characters, how dialogue based it was in the good sense. You get action in every episode, but so often the dialogue would be the best piece to it. And a show that from the very beginning made sure that all these supporting characters were just as good as the main cast. In everywhere you go where we meet someone new, that you like, they're interesting in how they interact with our characters. So whether the night nurse or Wesley with Kingpin, Ben Urich, all of these characters, they bring something to the table. They're true supporting characters, that they enhance the show. They support our leads to make our leads better. They support the scenes to make the scenes better, versus Daredevil Born Again, where the supporting cast were really just the filler cast. They filled out scenes, but they didn't really support them. They didn't make them better. In this show, in these seasons, the supporting cast made everything better. And then kind of beyond that, as kind of this action show, the action puts most movies to shame in just the choreography of it, the physicality of it, having a distinct style, long, wide takes. And the show ended up becoming kind of famous for its oneers. And that just set the tone for what this show was, what it was capable of doing, and what made it so different from the shows around it. Of course, then you have Kingpin, and they brought in someone like Vincent D'Onofrio to be Kingpin in the show. You know, Charlie Cox, he'd had been in a number of things, even high-profile things, but not this big-name person. So then they get someone like Vincent D'Onofrio that by this point in time in his career had been in gigantic movies for 30 years, and bring one of his bizarro but absolutely perfect Vincent D'Onofrio performances to it. It's just like so idiosyncratic that you could only get this performance and it could only work from Vincent D'Onofrio doing it. And he's so good playing this very complex villain that's a mastermind, that is very meticulous and intentional, but also prone to fits of rage. And everything is part of, like, he's always thinking ahead, but he can be very impulsive. And there's such a strength to him, but also overt vulnerabilities. And it's just like such a great blend. And it's all there, present from the very beginning. Incredible introduction to the show. I'd say, like, if there's like a criticism, it feels like the main plot, this type of main plot was done better in season 3, of just more focused in building the tension, the anxiety as it kind of went through it. And they'd figured out a lot by the time they got to season 3. In season 1, maybe it wasn't quite as tight of the focus on the plot. It just kind of gets lost a little bit, maybe late, mid-season. Just maybe I had something to complain about here, but I love this season. Our runner-up, Daredevil Season 2. I know that this is a little bit of a controversial placement, as Season 2 is widely regarded as the weakest season of the original run of Daredevil. And even on Twitter right now, there's kind of this argument, like, is Born Again better than Season 2? I think the idea that Born Again is better than Season 2 of Daredevil is kind of crazy to me, simply on the basis of what I said before, of the lack of interesting supporting characters, which leads to a lack of interesting dialogue, and all the between moments aren't all that great. When I think about Daredevil Season 2, of course there's all the Frank Castle stuff, but I feel like my favorite scenes of dialogue are sprinkled all throughout this season. Even a lot of it is in the back half where people are like, well, it gets boring and I don't like the stuff with the hand. All throughout that, there's just great moments. Karen and Frank in the diner, even some of the trial of Frank. Like, so many great moments between characters. And that's why this show is great to me. It's not just that there's cool action and the Punisher killed some people and Daredevil beat the crap out of that dude. The characters are great. The dialogue is great. That's what I love about this show, and what was missing from Born Again, and which I think is absolutely present in Season 2. Now, as someone that loves the Punisher, getting this absolutely vicious version of the Punisher is just amazing to see. Now, of course, It's primarily that 4-episode arc at the beginning is where you really get it. Both him in action, as well as the scene on the roof that's pulled straight from the comics of Frank and Matt debating their views on what they're doing and being vigilantes. Just amazing, fantastic stuff. And Frank Castle in this season is the best Frank Castle that we've gotten in movies, television, anything like that. This is the best live action Punisher that we've ever gotten. Better than even on his own TV show, I would say by a good bit. I enjoy this version of him better, and usage of the character better than over there. And I'm a fan of all the Punisher movies, but this is the best version of it. But even in the back half of the season, I love the trial of Frank Castle, using Frank in all these different ways, where you get in a season of 13 episodes, him doing his thing and getting taken down, him on trial, him in prison, and then him exacting his final revenge, all in one season. So it doesn't linger on any one Frank dynamic too long. Beyond that, you get the lingering tension in Matt's life of his dual lives, where Foggy knows what's going on, but Karen doesn't. And things are getting more serious with Karen, both at the work as well as personally. But the reason most people say that this is the worst season of Daredevil, maybe worse than Born Again, is the stuff with the hand. Like, as soon as you get past, most people are like, episode 1 through 4, fantastic, and then episode 5 just goes off the rails. I would say it's obviously weaker, because they never figure out quite how to do the hand right in the Netflix universe. But it's like, it's not bad. And there's still great dialogue in here. The Frank stuff is still interwoven in here. It's just not as good. Like, I get it. The people that say it's overtly bad, I think, are just wrong. If you think this season is worse than Born Again because of the hand, like, the hand plot isn't somehow worse than the weird stuff in Born Again about Wilson Fisk being a mayor and going to marriage counseling, like, and trying to get policies passed. It's not worse than that. But season 2 has better characters, better dialogue. And so all the in-between stuff that's generally not as interesting, that's not tied necessarily to the main plot, it's all better in season 2. And my favorite dialogue, and some of my favorite episodes, and my favorite Frank Castle stuff, it's in this one. And my favorite oneer is the one in this season. But coming in at first, Daredevil Season 3. Now, I hadn't rewatched Season 3 in several years. Season 3 is just a tight season, so it doesn't lend itself as much to, like, rewatch this episode or rewatch this scene. It's like you have to rewatch the whole season to, like, fully capture how good it is. And in particular, watching it in the context of binging Seasons 2 and Defenders right beforehand, it plays so potent. And it is the culmination of everything that's come before, of Matt wrestling with himself and the toll his life has on the people around him. It really is just peak Daredevil of everything coming together, of having this story for Matt that is so personal. And they bring his mother into the mix, and just this whole backstory of everything that makes Matt is challenged in this season, while also giving us full-blown Kingpin the mastermind, where this time it really feels like he's always 5 moves ahead of everyone else. He's always thinking ahead and has this master plan. And as the season starts, we don't, as the audience, don't even fully realize this, that we're kind of entered into this world through the perspective of this FBI agent that we're just kind of introduced to, know just enough about him. He's kind of in a desperate situation that he's really looking for his moment. And we go into the world of Fisk manipulation from his perspective. And he steps into it. And we're, as the audience, we know that Fisk is manipulating this guy, but we don't know to what extent. But we only learn how big of something is up as the character does. We discover the extent of the corruption as he does. So we think, as we're following him, that they're about to get the upper hand. And right as we think we're about to get the upper hand, turns out, nope. Fisk, his plan is this big. And he's been manipulating everyone from a distance, long form, for a while, to push everything in the direction that he wants, for the path that he is cutting. And you feel the danger of a mastermind. It doesn't cheat and cut the corners. It introduces something about this character at the beginning. And you go, okay, like, how could a Wilson have, known that about this person? Oh, this was all like set up beforehand. This was all part of the long play, very long play to lead to this series of circumstances in this of just utter corruption, while also bringing in Bullseye into the mix and making this very human, unstable character that is our Bullseye, that can be the physical foil for Daredevil, while Kingpin is the mastermind behind the scenes in lockup, and you can't get to him, but Daredevil or Bullseye can go out there and battle. And it plays all sorts of like political games. It plays around with the big the perception of characters. There's so many arcs in here that are run entirely by Foggy and Karen, and they're super compelling and interesting. There's a whole episode dedicated to Karen, because you love all of these characters and you love the side characters. And we introduced this new FBI character, and he's interesting, and you're following him, and like you get why he got sucked into this thing, and why he would like let his guard down just a little bit to head in this direction. And all of it just feels so well written. So you put all the pieces together. This was just peak Daredevil. This is what you want from it. To his credit, Daredevil Season 3 is great, so it comes in at number 1. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out my other content about the Marvel Disney Plus shows, about Marvel Netflix. I'll have somewhere stuff all over here that you can dive into all of it. Hey, thank you so much for watching. Keep talking movies and TV to